All right, let them know with Joe, season 3, episode 3. We got the wittiest, smartest, tallest guy I know to this day. His name is Wes German. What's up, Wes? How you doing?
That is superlatives. I hope I can live up to it. I guess they
Actually,
won't
really
really.
quick, I need you to change your audio because it's back to your microphone.
Is it now? Can you hear? Can you hear now?
Yeah, you still using? Oh, were you always using the microphone?
Yeah, I had it on the microphone.
Oh,
Here.
okay.
How
There it
about
is.
now?
That's better. Yeah,
There
yeah.
we go. Cool.
There we go. I do apologize for that, y'all. It's Wes's first time to ever use Zoom, so uh,
I've only been teaching classes on it for months, but my bad, guys.
no, you're good, bro. Wes German, it's been a while. Last
It
time I
has.
saw you in real life probably was in Australia. Is that correct?
That is sadly correct. It's been
Yeah.
since what beginning of 2017, I think. You left somewhere around January, so it's been over 4 years.
Yep. It's been a while, bro.
It's been a good
Uh,
4 years.
it's been a great 4 years. Um, we basically miss each other every time. You've come up here, I think, a few times, and I just was busy. Something you were driving and all that. And then I went to Phoenix at one point for a delayed flight, but you're busy as well.
Well, I was going to come to San Francisco March. What was it? March 15th last year, and then this thing called coronavirus
That
happened.
is true.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yeah, I have a bit of it, but let's yeah, let's talk about really quick how we kind of just first met, just to kind of get a context of our relationship, or if you have any kind of thoughts about our relationship since we've been friends. And what you got for me? What you got for me, Wes?
all right. So I have some early memories of Joe Martinez. Let's see, that would be going back to 2014. So I don't know how old you would have been at the time, but I was just
Doesn't matter
a
how old
right
I was been.
22 years old. Yeah, I don't want to do the math and figure out that you're actually like 45 now, but
Yeah, come on,
uh,
son.
you look great. Um,
Thanks.
but you always struck me as incredibly hilarious. So I regularly describe you to people as the funniest person I've ever met.
I love that.
Uh, and
That's why
one
you're
of
on the
my
show today, by the way, because you say that. But anyways, go ahead.
yeah, I figured. But I think one of my first memories was we had a class together where our teacher, our trainer would get us to get people to do dance offs.
Hmm.
And I one
Yes.
of my earliest memories of you was they put "Baby" by Justin Bieber on, and you turned your back to the audience,
Yes.
which normally they say is never a thing to do in showmanship, but you had a very specific reason why, and you started uh, flexing your muscles to the beat. Um, and
The gluteus maximus muscles.
yes, that one. And it was very funny, but the music very quickly stopped. And
Yes.
I think that was probably the day that I knew I wanted to be friends with you.
Well, to be honest, that was the last time we ever did that in that class. I believe so. And um, I really didn't know what I was doing, so I just kind of just did that off a reaction. But I learned it from the great Nacho Libre, one of my
Awesome.
great teachers who taught me how to flex my butt
To
nice and
be honest,
strong.
there are probably a lot of last things that we did because of you. So you can take credit for being the last person to ever do it.
The first and the
Um,
last. The last shall
and
be
it's
first.
I like that. And I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say it's not because it just got to cross the line, but because they decided it can't be topped.
Yeah.
Joe, he maxed it out, can't be topped.
I agree. And you know what's funny about that story? A lot of people always bring that story up whenever we come back and talk on the pod that I dated college with. They're like, I remember that story when Joe was up there dancing and he flexed his butt and it was done.
It's
But yeah, that's a very good story. I appreciate that. Wes, we played a few times together over the years.
sure have.
You're on keys, I was on bass. Always loved playing with you. But we'll get into that later. I kind of want to talk about let's kind of talk about you. This is what it's about. It's about you, and we want to get to know you a bit, but also, figure out some of your thoughts, some of your struggles, and kind of help people out in the future and stuff like that. And so, firstly, where are you from? And we'll go from there.
Awesome. So I'm originally from Dixon, Illinois, a small town in northwest Illinois, about 15,000, hometown of Ronald Reagan. That's kind of what puts us on the map. And I now live in Phoenix, Arizona. But I've lived a few places in between. I went to Indiana Wesleyan University for 4 years for my undergrad, and then I went to Hillsong College in Sydney, Australia, the city campus in 2014 through 2017. That's where I met Joe. And I actually lived there till early 2019 when I moved to Phoenix to help actually plant Hillsong College USA, where I now work.
Love it. That's amazing. By the way, what are you drinking? I see you got a red
I,
cup there.
it's really a specialty. Circle K. I don't
Love
know
it.
if you've heard of it. It's a very high-end coffee retailer, and yeah, a really nice Colombian roast here with a bit of hazelnut to top it off. So
I love that. Do you put milk in your
very high
coffee or
class.
do you just drink it black?
I normally drink it black, but when it's a gas station coffee, I might top it up a little bit. So yeah,
Interesting. I don't think no matter what coffee I ever drink, I'll always drink it black. I don't even care if it's from the gas station. I don't know. I guess because what's funny. I love milk growing up, drinking it every day. Before I went to school, I would drink about 2 or 3 glasses of milk all the time. But then I just stopped drinking it, and then once I got some milk again, it kind of just messed up my stomach, and so
yeah.
now I just really don't drink it anymore.
I feel like I usually drink almond milk. I actually prefer the taste of almond milk. So
Well, I do like oat milk in my coffee. Have you tried oat milk in the coffee?
I have.
I think it's better than almond milk in coffee. It's a really good combination.
I I'm one of those people that if you live in Australia, this. You get an appreciation for really good coffee, but
Yep.
I don't mind. I can appreciate really good coffee. I don't know it like really coffee connoisseur type people know it, but
Right.
I don't mind gas station coffee. However, I had a coffee here in Phoenix where they put almond milk in the coffee, but they burnt the milk, and that was probably the only coffee I've ever had where I just could not finish it. It was so disgusting. It
Yeah,
tasted
well,
like I was drinking a tree. Um,
never burn the milk, y'all.
yeah, it
Never burn
was
anything. To be
burnt
honest,
almonds. Yeah, not fun.
I'm drinking um a drink that I used to drink back in the day. It's Sailor Jerry's spiced
Cellar
rum.
jars.
I actually found this bottle while I was looking for what to drink today, and it's a little small little bottle. Sailor
There you go.
Jerry's known for their tattoos as well.
What a
Spiced rum,
combination.
huh?
What a combination.
Yeah, it's really good actually. If you mix this with Coke, it actually tastes like vanilla Coke. So if you ever wanted to have a good drink, the spice rum with vanilla
There you
Coke with Coke is amazing. Cool.
go. There you go.
So you said that you went to study in where before Hillsong College,
Indiana Wesleyan University.
and what did you study, and how was that there?
So I studied mathematics because I'm crazy,
Yeah,
and I
you
did
heard it from me.
a minor in applied piano. So that was quite the combination, math and music.
I love that. Um, yeah, you definitely play a lot of piano. We'll get you to play a bit later, which I
Mhm.
can't wait to hear because I always love hearing you play. And I do know you have a few originals that you made as well and you've written, and maybe we might hear one of those too. But that's really cool. Mathematics. What made you get into mathematics or decide to go towards that?
So it was actually it was something I was always good at. I'm more I'm one of those rare left brain creatives where I think more of the logical left brain, but I like creating stuff. But um, I I always was good at math from a young age, and I always just was fascinated by it, fascinated by how things just weave together. I love patterns. I love connectedness, seeing how things relate to one another, and I just love the absolute nature of math. Um, and I originally actually was studying computer software engineering. I thought I wanted
Interesting.
to do that, and it actually wasn't my cup of tea. But I really liked my math classes. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch to mathematics. I'm not sure exactly what field I'm going to go into out of this, but I like it, and it'll set me up well for grad school, which I did not end up doing. But
Mm,
um, I don't regret doing that at all. It definitely stretched me in many ways. A lot of really difficult classes, but um, I don't know. I just think it really refines your analytical thinking skills and your pattern finding skills and stuff like that. It's just very interesting, and I definitely use math even in my job now. I'm kind of the Excel. spreadsheet maker. I'm always given those tasks or mental math. Hey, Wes, figure this out for me. So still use it, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting. I actually enjoyed math when I was in high school. I did, I didn't definitely get as high as you did, but I was taking pre-calculus AP when I was a junior, so I don't know if that counts for anything, but I did
It's
that. But
pretty
then I was
impressive.
like, I didn't want to do more in my senior year of high school, so I didn't do any more math. But math was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. What was the hardest part, like that you maybe had to learn in university for mathematics that you can remember, like the hardest thing you had to study?
Um, well, there was this one class called point set topology, which even the name of it, I can't even really tell you what the class is about. You start to get to a point where math no longer has any practical application and it's all theoretical stuff.
I was gonna
And
say,
it's
does
people with
that
too
come into
much
like
time on their
the
hands.
theories and all that, theorems and all that? Is that what that falls into a lot? Because I remember
Yeah,
taking a class. I think it was geometry, and then there's a lot of theorems in there with and just I'm just that
proofs.
stuff never really made sense to me. But I assume that might be part of that class as well.
Yeah, so actually proofs weren't something I had done as much in high school, but um, at maybe not that at crazy advanced of a level. It
Right.
was actually something really interesting. One of my favorite things I remember at math classes at my university was we had a class called number theory, and
Okay.
number theory is all about just proving really interesting things, like prove that a square root can never end in the digit two or something like that. Just proving random things, proving that um, just random things with numbers, and it's really really interesting. I really enjoyed that. So I think that's a perfect example. Proofs are a great example of the logic that goes into mathematics and how you can use that. It's actually a great entry into law school. Not what I went into, but stuff like that, because you learn how to devise proofs, and
Right.
you can prove by contradiction, where you basically say that if this isn't true, then this is true, and what you prove to be true is impossible. So by saying if x isn't true, then y is true, but y is impossible, well, that means that x must be true. And so you can
Wow.
actually find a lot of real world application. I even was kind of using this as an application in my theology class that I was teaching the other day, kind of logic and proofs and stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
was gonna
So
say because you could probably use this with apologetics or even theology when you try to study a bit more about that stuff because it's definitely
yeah,
a lot of if this happened, then this didn't happen, or if this could have happened, then that means it might have happened, or whatever. A lot of that stuff is very interesting to me as well. That's pretty cool, man.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I enjoy
go
it.
ahead.
I just
Oh,
say, yeah, I really enjoy it.
yeah. Is there any like cool like math thing that that you really think would be that you can tell us, like I don't know, like you kind of explain to us maybe like something like that you learned that's really cool. I mean, besides this, I think that might be it as well, but maybe like how people have these different I guess ways that they think to figure out like multiplication stuff like really easy and fast. Do you have something like that that you kind of like can explain or even
Oh,
try to explain?
I think like, yeah, just certain patterns you find out, and
Tell
people
us a
are like,
pattern. Yeah.
okay, so like for instance, oh, I should have a piece of paper.
Go get it, bro.
Basically,
Go get a piece of paper.
all right.
See you later.
So anytime you can visualize something and draw it, it always makes more sense, right?
That's true.
So think about things like square roots and squares can be really really confusing, but when you think about it, it's you're just drawing a square essentially. So I'm going to draw this up for the audience.
If you're listening to this, I do apologize. You can go check out my YouTube, and it'll be on there as well. And probably be on my Instagram. I'll post it on here. So you've
so
drawn.
how so I've drawn how many circles in this first square? It's not really a
Okay,
square,
first
but
explain what you've drawn for those that are listening.
so this is basically squares like in mathematics. So you have one, see how now you have four and you have nine. So
Okay,
one
so there.
squared is one, two squared is four, three squared is nine. If you keep going, four squared is 16, five squared is 25, right?
Right.
But you start to notice certain patterns. So, for instance,
Right. I assume. I'm just agreeing with what you say.
uh, 1 plus what is 4?
3.
3. So you see the 3, how it kind of encases around that 1. You're drawing the bottom edge and then the right edge. See that?
Yeah.
And then you add how much are you adding now to get to 9? 1 plus 3 is 4, plus how much to get to 9?
5.
And you start to see a pattern. So 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9, plus 7 is 16, plus 9 is 25. And you find
Yeah.
out
You
that
lost me,
you can
bro.
get all the squares are just adding up odd numbers.
Okay.
So I'll slow down. So 1, that's 1, right?
Yeah.
Add 3,
Uh huh.
you got 4.
Right.
Add 5, you got 9. Add 7, you have 16. Add 9, you have 25. Add 11, you have 36, which is 6 squared. Add 13, you have 7 squared, which is 49. And so you actually see the relationship by visualizing it.
Right. So you're saying the square root of 9 is 5?
No, the square root of 9 is 3. But if you add 1 plus 3 plus 5, you get 9. All I'm trying to say
So
is,
it's whatever that maybe that odd number was before. So if the if we go one more, so 5, and then 5 plus 7 is what? What's that? Could you do it
12.
faster? 12.
So
So the square root of hold on, wait. Let me. The square root of 12 would be 5.
not
Or am I?
quite, but you have to keep adding them up. So 1 plus 3 is 4, and you have to hold on to those. 1 and 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9. So that's 3. So
Oh,
we've added up 3 odd numbers, and we get 3
right.
squared.
Okay,
Now we've added up
so the
4,
number of odd numbers that you've added up in that order will be the square root of what that is.
or that number squared. So if I add up the first
Oh yeah, the
5
number
odd
squared. Yeah,
numbers, if I add up the first 5 odd numbers, I'll be 5 squared. So 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus 7 plus 9 is 25. That's 5 squared. So if I add up
right.
the
Okay,
first, so if I added up the first 100 odd numbers, that would be 100 squared, which is 10,000, which all you get by just adding 2 zeros. So I just told you what 1 plus 3 plus 5 plus all the way up to like 200 or 190, whatever the first 100 odd numbers are, because I recognize that pattern, and the pattern visualizes itself because you
right.
see by adding the odd numbers, you're basically just adding another bottom and another side to the square. See that
Interesting. Yeah.
bottom side. There's a lot of different things though. If you're interested in math, I would say look at Pascal's triangle. Blaise Pascal, brilliant mathematician. That's one of the most phenomenal because it's got application to statistics and all sorts of things. Coin tosses, like what's the probability that so and so is going to flip 3 heads if they're flipping 8 coins, all those things, and you can get exact probabilities. I won't demonstrate that one just for time's sake because that would take a while. But
You can also use this for like poker and stuff, huh?
you honestly, you could. Understanding statistics, it can be really helpful in life. It also can
Interesting.
be a curse because you overanalyze things.
Speaking
You
of
know,
poker, do you have Hulu?
do I have my roommate does, so I
Well, if you
guess
get a
I
chance,
kind of do.
you should watch this movie. And those who are listening, if you haven't watched this movie, please do. It's called oh dang, it's called In and of Itself. Well, it
Mm.
has the actual guy's name. It says his name, and then it says in and of itself, and it's a movie. But what it is a guy, one person performing in a theater with people in it, and he performs his show in New York, and it's actually amazing, bro. But he does some car stuff, but it's actually more than that. And I'm not gonna tell you anything else about it because if I do, I want to ruin it. And I want you to watch it and just tell me what you think. For those who watch it too, tell me what you think as well because it's absolutely amazing. And I haven't
I'll have to
stopped talking
watch it.
about it. Yeah, you definitely should. Maybe after this, you should go watch it.
One of the most fascinating movies with mathematics that I've seen is The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's the World War II. Have you seen it?
I don't think I have.
It's basically about the Turing machine. Alan Turing, he was one of the first computer guy. Like he developed a computer, but it wasn't like electronic. It was basically a system though that calculated things using like levers and all sorts of things. But
The abacus.
the,
Was by-
the way he had to use probability,
Uh,
and is it all right if I tell you a scene in the movie,
yeah, it's
or
fine. Just say spoiler alerts for anything if there's a
spoiler
spoilers.
spoiler alert? All right. So there's a scene, and it's actually pretty tragic. But basically, they figure out they hacked into the Germans. They decode the Germans' encryption system, which basically is the messages they're sending to basically when the next attack will be, the
Right.
exact coordinates. And I don't remember all the details, but they figure out that there's going to be an attack on this particular submarine or whatever in the Atlantic Ocean, and one of the guys who's part of this think tank, whatever, with the computer, realizes that his brother is on that ship, and
Oh
so
wow.
his knee-jerk reaction is, okay, we need to tell them, but Alan Turing, the main character, he's basically like, no, we can't. Essentially, they have to use probability to figure out how many times they can guess correctly, because if they guess correctly every time, then the Germans will know that they've figured out their system. So they had to
Right.
basically maximize this. What is the minimum amount of times that, or the maximum amount of times that we can,
Get it right.
save lives? And they figure out they save millions of lives. We can get it right, save lives, without, while
Them
still being
finding out.
within their the range of, it could still be luck. So
Yeah.
it's not too much that the Germans think
Wow.
that it's like, you think about the ethics that go into that. They knew something was going to happen. These people are going to die, and there's like a fist fight or something. That guy wants to, he's like, no, we have to tell his brother's on the ship. It's
It's a
tragic,
true
but
story.
yeah, yeah, true story.
Wow.
And you just think, but apparently millions of lives were saved. But the ethics, the dilemmas that go into that of, you know,
Bro, that reminds me of something I read yesterday on Twitter, and it was crazy. It made me think. And it said this. It said, "Remember, a hero is willing to sacrifice you for the greater good of other people, but a villain is willing to sacrifice others for the greater of you."
shoot,
And I was like, "Whoa." Maybe they were being, I don't know if they were kidding or what they were saying, but I was like, bro, that's so true. Like, a hero is willing to sacrifice one person for the greater good of everybody else, but a
yeah,
villain is willing to sacrifice everybody else for the greater good of one person.
yeah, that's tough, man.
That's crazy, right? I'm like,
Crazy.
wow. But then you come into Christianity, you're like, it's all about the one person.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, that was a
But
thought and a half, man.
and that they even that kind of calls into question how much do we over individualize Christianity, when the God, God of the Bible is the God of generations, and
Yeah,
we're always part of a bigger story, and sometimes we make it too much about ourselves. I'm like, people are like, how could God, do this or do that? I'm like,
yeah.
well, you're thinking of it too individually. God's got this generational thing going on,
Well,
and that's just not how we've been trained to think as Americans. But
that's how. I mean, that's how us as humans have been trained to think in general because we have a start and a stop, but God sees above that, and so that's how I've kind of used before whenever I've talked about, you know, the whole story about Moses when he hardens Pharaoh's heart. You're like,
yeah,
why did God harden Pharaoh's heart? And this is my thought process about it. And let me hear what you think about it too. But I use this. I was like, okay, for us, it's hard to see because we think of beginning and end, right? But for God, he sees above and beyond. And maybe God knew that Pharaoh would never choose to love God or never choose to change his ways. And so instead, he hardened his heart to make other things work out for other people. You know what I mean? And so
yeah,
for me, it wasn't so much as predestination or not so much of that, but will. But I mean, what's the word?
free will.
Free will. It's not so much about free will because he has free will, but because God knows what he's gonna do, he's like, might as well use him to help others, even though I know he's never gonna change. So it's like maybe that's the way he thinks, and I'm like, but of course we can never really fathom that and know exactly why. But for me, I feel like that's kind of like a little bit of a okay, that can make sense a bit, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? What have you thought about that at all before?
Well, it's funny because I've thought about that story, that concept recently, maybe from a slightly different angle.
Okay.
But I know people often use that story of, well, God hardened Pharaoh's heart, and they use it as a God did this, so this is what God does. I think another example of we could, you can draw some crazy examples from Scripture.
Right.
The story of Hosea and Gomer, like God tells Hosea to go marry a prostitute.
Right. I
That's
feel that
a
over your life right
specific.
now too, in Jesus' name.
Well, if she's given up her ways and turned to Jesus, then maybe I'll think about it.
Okay.
But we sometimes look at things that God did specifically to accomplish a certain purpose, and like, why would God do that?
Yeah.
And we think that we try to make it as rules, therefore God acts this way. I don't think people do that with the story of Hosea. Like, God doesn't normally ask people to do that.
Right.
But that's, I think people get hung up with that because, like, well, God did this, therefore this must be what God does. We
Right.
forget that God isn't just a set of rules. God is a person. He is higher than us. His ways are higher. He is immutable. He is all these things that we say he is. But one of the most profound statements I ever heard in my 3 years of Hillsong College was in third year apologetics class. And
Duncan
it was,
Corby.
well, this one was in, I think he might have said that Matt Gilmore,
What a
if
legend.
you remember. Yeah, what a guy. Like, it was in tutorial. He said, don't box God by his own godness. And what that, it just stuck with me because it's this idea of sometimes we decide, well, God has to operate according to these rules, and this is where I can go sometimes as a math guy.
Yeah.
These are the
Especially with math.
axioms.
Because I feel like
Yeah, these
math
are
is
the
that much more of like black and
yeah,
white. You know what I mean? Compared
yeah.
to like gray or anything. Anyways, sorry. Go ahead.
And that's not to say that he'll violate his character or anything, but we forget that God might act in specific ways
Right.
as as a person interacting with creation, because God is person. And so we can't just take a thing that he does and say he did this once, therefore God always does this. So while that doesn't really give an answer maybe in our human justification of
Right.
why he hardened Pharaoh's heart, for people to take that instance and say therefore God hardens these people's hearts, he doesn't harden these people's hearts, you can't take one thing that happened and just say this is what God does
Right.
all the time, because it's a narrative, it's a story. He is much more complex than that, and sometimes we can take God and really simplify him way too much in order to try to achieve some measure of consistency with who he
Yeah.
is.
It's so real.
And we and sometimes the greatest idolatry that we can be guilty of is idolizing our understanding of who God is instead of
That's
actually
good.
worshiping God for who he is, which is always going to be more mystery than it is things we understand. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be like, there's always going to be more that we don't know than there is what we know, which actually ties it back to mathematics, because one of the most profound things my professor said, one of my professors said that when he started and he like finished first like a class freshman year of mathematics, when he was studying, he said, um, man, I think I must know like 50% of all there is to know in mathematics.
Wow.
And then he got to the end of his bachelor's and he's like, okay, maybe I know 10% of all there is to know in mathematics. And then when he finished his PhD, he's like, if I know 1% of all there is to
Jeez.
know, then I'm doing a really good job. And I think it's the
Wow.
same way with our approach to God. I don't even think we can make percentages because God is infinite, but it's like, man, if I just know this much, this little bit, then I'm on the right track. And
Right.
it's funny that often it's the Dunning-Kruger effect is this phenomenon that people who are ignorant in something often think they're way more competent in it than they actually are. It actually takes a measure of knowledge and escape from ignorance to realize how ignorant you are. It's not
Wow.
until you realize that you don't know what you don't know, as people say.
Yeah.
And
Say it
then
again.
you
Say it again one more
realize
time. You said
you
it's
don't know what you
no, no,
don't
no,
know.
no. Before that, you said with the ignorance part. Uh,
I'll try to remember it. Actually, in order to escape your ignorance, you have to realize your ignorance. I didn't say it like that, but it takes a measure of um, I don't know, like it takes some learning to realize how ignorant you are so that you can
Right.
escape your ignorance. It's almost
Okay.
like
Yeah. It
it's
takes
a
some learning to
paradox.
understand how ignorant you are, to take away the ignorance, to keep learning and stuff like that. Wow, that's amazing. That's so good,
Yeah.
bro. Let me ask you this. It's a good conversation. Throughout, your study with mathematics, you were a Christian during then too, right? Pretty much all
Yep.
your life, you've been a Christian. With that, and then coming to Hillsong College, and then doing your studies there, getting to a theology, and then some what's the word, apologetics, stuff like that, and then even now, teaching this stuff to other people, but as well, you're still, I assume you're still learning and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Has there ever been a time in your life, or times, I assume maybe, where you're like, you've been afraid that you might be wrong, or you've been afraid that, man, this, I don't understand, and like this kind of scares me a bit because, have I been wrong, or has this been something that maybe is different from what I've ever thought in my entire life? Has that ever happened to you before?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever gone through like a really crazy existential crisis. I feel
Yeah.
I've been blessed in many ways. I haven't had like some really crazy traumatic loss, that's really just shaken my faith to the core. But I do, even when I went from Indiana Wesleyan to Hillsong College, going from Wesleyan University to a moving to a different country, different continent, and going to a Pentecostal church. And
Right.
it's a very different type of studying. It's more vocational, which now I appreciate so much. But
Same.
it's Pentecostal, and I'm not from a Pentecostal background growing up.
Where are you
So
from? Baptist?
it's Christian and Missionary Alliance is the denomination. It's
Okay.
great denomination, very missions focused and stuff like that. But my particular church has become more Pentecostal than I'm
Okay.
from. But it's basically what I went to at Hillsong College was, I mean, in Hillsong, in the grand scheme of Pentecostal churches, is not is they're pretty
Very
mainstream.
low. They're pretty, yeah, they're pretty,
Yeah,
not in regards to like, yeah, other
because
churches.
they're trying to reach people, and they I think there's a healthy understanding of, we don't want to be so weird that people are, we always say the Holy Spirit's not weird, right?
Right.
But you got guys like Brendan Brown who are just phenomenal, like in just his just phenomenally anointed, and he can just, the Holy Spirit is just so at work in him.
Yeah.
And Chris Mendez and other guys that, which now I admire that so much. And I always looked up to that, but it was very confronting at first,
Yeah.
seeing, some of those edges of Pentecostalism that I really had adopted in my life. And that definitely was, there's a period of questioning, not what do, like, is God real? Not that level, but just like, what do I believe about this,
Right.
and how can I actually question in a healthy way? Because that's something I don't feel like, feel like we don't always do well in the church. Is how can you actually stay planted and stay in community and ask the right kind of questions, and like not just ask people who are going to hear you out, but ask people who might be able to speak things into it.
Right. That's
Um,
real.
because I think sometimes we put such a premium on, well, you got to figure out what you believe. But I think sometimes we forget, like, well, it's actually good to hear from people who've done a little more journey than we have.
Yeah.
And what do you believe? I don't want you to just ask me, what do you think? I'm like, tell me what you think, because I'm not sure what to think right now. And
Yeah. That's real, bro. I think we've had I think maybe everybody that went to, some sort of Bible college has had that conversation with themselves of like, what do I actually believe? And from there, it's like, what do you do next? Do you go ask somebody? Do you go into a hole and study by yourself and figure out on your own? I think it's the best of both. I think it's like, go figure it out, but also go talk to people that have done the journey with a lot further than you and have known stuff. Because I think the same thing with the whole discussion of politics and stuff. if
mhm,
if you're not willing, if so I saw this the other day. It said, let's normalize getting new facts and being able to change your mind of what you
yeah,
initially thought. And I think that's so real because so many times we're so thick-headed and just want to be right that we hear these facts and they're true and they're right, but we still decide to just believe what we want to. And I think that's a very unhealthy. For
yeah,
me, I've seen it with other people in Christianity that went to college, and they're like, they weren't so open with hearing things, and so they never grew. And I think I think it's so important to be open, not just open, but to be open to learn new things and hear new things and learn facts and then learn these new things and like, okay, let's start making a new thought process of this and go and move forward. I think it's very important. If we don't do that, we're never going to grow. We're going to just stay the same and get bitter. We don't want
Absolutely.
that, you know?
and and I think one of the things that people don't spend enough time doing is actually taking the time figuring out what facts are actually attached to my identity and which ones aren't.
Yeah, true.
Because because if you figure out what's attached to your identity, these are the things that if I believe some if this is shattered, then I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes we attach things to that shouldn't be that. Like if this person isn't president anymore, or this person becomes president, or this, leader fails me, and we attach things to our identity that don't belong attached to our
Yeah,
identity.
true.
So I've figured out, okay, Jesus, my belief in Jesus is that's attached to my identity. That is my identity, who I am, God. If I stop believing that, I wouldn't know who I am anymore. There are certain things that are attached, and then there are certain things that get further and further out. And I think it takes, like, if you can realize, okay, this is important. Like, I think what you think about politics obviously is important, but
Yeah.
if you can realize, okay, this isn't who I am, but maybe in politics there are some values
Yeah.
that undermine those politics that are closer to who you are. And if you can kind of, okay, this, my identity is a circle, and then this stuff is further on the peripheral, and understanding where certain things lie,
Yeah.
it's so helpful, because then you can actually see uh, an attack of a belief not as an attack of your identity,
It's
but just,
great.
okay, someone disagrees with me. It's just different thought process here.
That's good. I think it goes to the conversation of doctrine and dogma, you know?
Yeah.
Our doctrine is the firm foundation that we stand on, and if that crumbles, we're gonna be losing a lot. But they which is like the core beliefs of Jesus down on the cross, being raised from the dead, Him forgiving our sins, grace, mercy, forgiveness, but also faith and works and all that stuff. But
Mhm.
dogma could be the whole story of Jonah, if you believe that it's a real story or not. It could be either or. We don't know for sure, but we do know that if it was a real story or if it was fake, it still can speak to us, and that's
Yeah.
that's more of a dogma kind of argument of like, I believe it happened or I don't believe it happened. I'm not willing to down this mountain because of it. I'm just like, okay, we can talk about it. I can grow more about it, but I'm not going to make that decision destroy my life.
I think you got the two flipped around.
Oh,
Dogmas,
dogma
but yeah,
is
everything you
what?
said was
Yes.
brilliant.
Okay,
But
my bad. Are you sure?
it's a yeah,
Okay,
dogma's
cool.
the core. Then doctrine's like
Doctrine is, yeah.
further
Okay,
out.
yeah, further out. Okay, my fault.
and and no, it's all good. I like this quote that Augustine said: "In essentials, unity; in non-essentials, liberty; and in all things, charity." The essentials are the dogma, the non-essentials are doctrine, and sometimes even way like, most church splits don't even happen over doctrine. It's usually the music's too loud or something like that, which is
Yeah,
people get so divisive over. But that's why the third statement, in all things charity, in all things love, like,
yeah,
and that's what I come back to, like, going with the existential crisis thing. Like, I don't want to say I spend less time thinking about what I believe, but I think sometimes we can be so worried about what we believe and what we think. And I always like to say, I say this to my students, I'm like, Jesus at the end of the day isn't going to say, "Well thought, good and faithful servant." He's going to say, "Well done."
well
And,
done.
like,
Yeah,
we're
so good.
actually accountable for the things we do.
Yeah,
Like, if you don't get it all, but you love people really well, you're on the right track.
right.
And that's what I love about what I do. That's what I love about Hillsong College, is it's very vocational. And it's
Yeah,
like, we want to train people to do, because there are a lot of Christians or former Christians who are very educated in the Bible and theology, but aren't attached to a church, aren't actually
loving.
really seeing love and justice outworked in this world.
Yeah,
And it's just becomes very detached from the real world, and that's not helpful for anyone.
it's funny
So
because I actually read that this morning. I'm reading through the New Testament, and I read it today. Just the verse, where they ask, "What's the greatest commandment?" They ask Jesus, and he says, to love your father with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your might, or whatever whatever it is. Anyways, and then he says, and also to love your neighbor as you love yourself. and I was talking because me and my housemate Brandon, we read in the morning, and we're talking about it afterwards, and I was saying, man, I love this verse because it always reminds me of the two most important things, you know, that we should be doing overall over everything is loving God and loving people. And it says, but and he brought it up, and I'm like, man, it's so true. He said, but you got to remember, it is simple, but it's not that simple either, because
Yeah.
he says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And the thing about it is, so many times we don't learn to love ourselves. And so we
Yeah.
actually can never really love our neighbor if we don't first love ourselves,
That's true.
you know? And so and I was like, man, that's so real, bro. And I was like, and I was telling him, man, you know what? There's been times that I feel like I've loved others more than I love myself. And when I say that, I mean, I speak forgiveness over their life, like, you know, if they're going through struggles and all that. But for myself, I beat myself up because I can't forgive myself. You know what I mean? And then so
Hmm.
then I think, well, then do I actually love others if I'm not even loving myself the way I'm telling other to love others? And so for me, it's like it's been a journey. It's like it's going to continue to be a journey of loving yourself, because it's hard to do. You know, believe it or not, like people, you know, if you've already learned to love yourself, you know, I that's awesome. But for me, I don't know about others, but for me, it's been a journey for me to learn to love myself, because
Yeah.
once I do that, I can authentically actually love others as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's, I think is there's really two sides to it, because it's not just loving yourself as in taking it easy on yourself, forgiving yourself, but it's
Right.
also like the thing I'm challenged with is like personal leadership. Like, okay, I want to make sure I'm actually taking care of my body, my
Yeah.
soul, my spirit. Like, that's loving myself. I'm gonna make wise decisions. I'm gonna get, I'm gonna take care of my health and all that stuff, because the more I can actually do that, the more capacity I have to love other people.
That's great.
And I think what it goes back to is, if that whole, like, I'm guilty of this. Like, if people will see through people will see through the inconsistencies eventually, where, like, if I'm telling people you're forgiven, you're all this stuff, they're going to eventually see, like, if I don't believe that for myself, they're going to be like, they're not going to take that on, because they don't even see me really living that in
Right.
my own life.
Yeah.
And
It's good.
that's where it's like, if I want to help people, I think that was brilliant. You're so right. Like, you have to line it up in your own life, and there's so much more power in it, you know
I feel like that's the greatest thing I've learned in my almost 4 years of being here in the Bay Area is loving myself. Because let me tell you a little bit about what's happened here. Is when I first got here, I was all about, let's go, let's grow this church, let's do whatever I can to help this church, and I'll put my career or my life kind of to the side because I want to help grow this. So for me, I chose to try to find the job that I can do the least amount of work and hours, so I can be able to put my focus on the church and stuff like that. And and to be honest, that was the worst mistake I ever made, because I ended up losing all my money. I ended up getting into worst debt and bad debt that I ever have, and I ended up like just even my health and my body. I got depressed. I didn't take care of my body. I didn't take care of my health, and it just was terrible for me, bro. And I was like, but why? I'm choosing to help the church and build it. Why am I going through all this struggle, and it sucks and it's hard and it's terrible? And for me, I had to realize that I'm gonna have to say no to a lot of other things right now in the church to be able to take care of myself. Because if I'm gonna be on empty, and if I'm not gonna take care of myself, I can't help anybody at all. I'm not gonna be able to help anybody.
yeah,
So what I've learned through the pandemic and even the probably the year before, half a year before that, is just I've been learning to kind of step away from what I was doing and trying to put all my effort into building the church, but put more effort into building my life, because then I can build the church a whole lot better. And I'll tell you what, bro, I'm in a way better place. I'm going to the
that's
dentist, bro. I'm
awesome.
going to the doctor. I'm doing all these things,
Come on.
getting checkups, and I'm taking care of myself a lot better, bro. And I made that my choice. You know, I made the decision that I'm going to, you know, go to the dentist. I want to take care of my teeth. I want to take care of my body. I want to take care of my skin, take care of my diet, take care of my money, because I want to be able to help others in the future. And so, one of my goals is to help someone get out of debt. You know, I want to be able
That's
to be
awesome.
able in such a good financial spot that if someone comes to me and be like, "Hey, I'm in debt and it sucks," and I'm like, you know what, I got you. Let's go. And we just take care of it, you know,
But
for no reason, for them not to pay me back or nothing, but just because I love people. And if anybody gets anything from this right now, just remember, take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, you're not gonna be able to help others at all. I think that's what I've been
Good
going
man.
through, bro.
Joe Ramsey, like Dave Ramsey,
Joe
gonna
Ramsey, Dave Ramsey.
get you.
That man said
I
if
like
you
Gordon Ramsay too.
that man said if you don't if his stimulus checks changes your life, then you're already in struggle already. Did you see that when he said that? I was like, dang,
I mean,
man,
that's true. Like
it's true, but
600 or
I don't mind that stimmy though. I still don't mind it. Send it to me. I'll take it.
yeah, oh yeah, he's
um,
got a good point.
he does, but what's the biggest thing you learned in Hillsong College when you were there? Those 4 years that you were there.
You know, one of the things I learned from you that I like to say was one of the biggest things is don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, true.
And what I mean by that is not like don't have a care in the world, because we need to care about stuff.
For sure.
But I think one of the biggest things I grew in was confidence, and I think you could probably remember that.
I
Like when
do.
I
Yeah.
first got there, like even something as silly as we were talking about the dance off. Like I don't remember, I know if you remember me being called up to that. I was so like afraid of being in front of people, but like not taking yourself too seriously in terms of I've always been a goofy guy. Like I
Yeah.
like making jokes, but like really just realizing that I'm loved. God loves me. People love me, and I have a community in the church. And look, I can have fun. I can be myself. And at the end of the day, like what I do is really important. But you have to be able to balance that paradox of what we do is so important as a church, but like at the same time, we're like, God just is this father up in heaven. We're these children. He
He
just
makes us
delights to
grow.
see us give it, and he delights to see us give it our best shot.
Yeah.
Like I think about playing music on platform, and sometimes the things I would get so stressed out about if I did wrong, like, oh no, I'm playing keys in an altar call and I play a wrong note. Is someone not going to raise their hand to give their life to Christ? On one hand, I need to put in the excellence, the preparation, because God is worthy of that and the people are worthy of that. Like this matters. But on the other hand, I'm like, God is so much bigger than being limited by my insufficiencies,
Right.
And I think about like the things that we do that we get so caught up and we glorify so much, the things that we put our identity in. I always like to dumb it down. Like I play the piano, but I'm just touching keys, hitting keys, and for me to put my identity in that, and whether I hit the keys well or didn't hit it well, people who put their identity in sports. I love baseball. You love baseball. Oh, I swung this piece of wood and hit the ball today. Yesterday I didn't, and I'm just citing my identity based on that.
Yeah.
It's that paradox of I'm going to take it seriously, then I'm going to learn to just live lightly, just let it go.
Yeah.
And I always challenge myself. I tell my students, like, if I got in a car accident tomorrow and I became paralyzed and I could never play the piano ever again, would that affect my identity? What would what would my ministry look like?
Right.
I never wanted to be the guy who's just known for his best talent or his most seen talent.
Right.
I want to be like, well, actually, I can keep, living life and flourishing and growing the kingdom because, you know, I'm known more for the way I love people and the way
Right.
I pastor people than just, being able to play the piano. And so
Yeah.
I think that goes along with it. It's like you take things seriously, but at the same time, you don't, it's like goes back to that identity thing. You don't put
Yeah.
so much stock in the things that, the world sometimes tells us to put stock in.
That's so good, man. And yeah, I continue to tell live my life that way, bro. Of just not taking myself too seriously. I run into so many people that are just so serious all the time, and they just want to be. I'm like, come on, like if you're not having fun, like church should be fun. Christianity should be fun.
Yeah.
And if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it totally wrong. And I love what Pastor Brian says. Church should not be endured, but it should be enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I want to enjoy it. If no one else is gonna have fun, I want to have fun. If it causes people to get annoyed and get mad, so be it. I'd rather have fun and have a great time than people look at me weird and get annoyed than anything else. And so I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be the one to lead the way in that stuff. And so,
You do well.
there's I know we're talking before, but there's so many times where I'll just start singing out loud off key, in the middle of a song, And for me, it's the funniest thing, bro. I love it so much because it's like a very serious moment, and then I just start singing super loud, and it's like it makes me laugh.
I
And
I remember you doing this.
yeah, it's just fun, you know. And of course, after that, I'm done. I won't do it anymore. But it's just like, you know, at one point, I'm just gonna do it, get a few laughs, and move forward and keep going. You know.
Yeah.
Oh well, let's do it.
I like it. You know, I love stuff like that. Like when there's stressful situations, I think there's two ways. You can either go super serious because you have to be serious, or you can keep it light because you realize that everyone's on the edge of freaking out.
Yeah.
And I know you wanted me to play a little piano, so I'll tell the story quickly. But um, I we were doing our Christmas spectacular show in Phoenix in
Uh-huh.
2019, and the rehearsals leading up to it were pretty hectic. Like we hadn't even had one good run through, and
Yeah.
we were trying to put it together. Basically, the night that we did it, we only have one show, and that was our run through. And I felt really prepared and confident, but I thought as a music director, I'm like, I'm the person they're going to have in their ears, and I can go one of two ways. I can either be like super serious because we need to be on it, or I know that everyone's already probably kind of freaking out, and I can just make jokes the whole time and just have a lot of fun. And I decided to go that direction. And honestly, I think it was the right call.
It
One of my
always is, bro.
friends, oh, you remember him, Dane Dudley.
Yeah.
Um, he was singing, and
Is he there
they
now
were
in
singing this.
Phoenix?
Yep, he and his wife Lexus are
Wow, I
there,
didn't know that. That's awesome.
and
Tell him I said
yeah,
hi.
he I will do. And he was singing though, and I was like, Dane, your fly's down in the mic, and like everyone's laughing. And he didn't like lose composure or anything, but like just stuff like that. I tell that story a lot because I think people were surprised by how lightly I could take it because all the circumstances would say like Wes should be freaking out right now, and I
Yeah.
wasn't. And one of the most brilliant things one of our pastors here said is, as a leader, everyone's looking at you for permission to panic, and that stuck in my head. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm not going to give them permission to panic. I'm laughing. I'm having a good time. They're going to laugh and have a good time. And that's so true. So I don't want to give people permission to panic.
I love that, bro. Don't give people permission to panic. That's amazing. Um, really quick, St. Louis Cardinals. Is that your team?
Yes. Yeah.
How are they looking this year? They're like pretty
Well, they
good.
got Nolan Arenado from the Colorado Rockies, so we'll
Okay.
see how his hitting translates. Going from Denver, Mile High, and down to the low, humid St. Louis, but his glove at third is just as good as ever. So he's up there with Alex Bregman, his best third baseman in baseball, except he doesn't need the trash can. So, or did I say?
You know what? I heard I talked about it on one of on the other podcast the other day with I believe Jimmy Hyde, and we're talking about how what's that comedian that has bald head and he's white dude. He always pushes the
Bill,
line. What is it?
Bill Burr,
Yeah,
that
Bill Burr.
crazy guy.
Yeah,
I love him.
he was talking about the Astros, and he was saying he's like, actually,
Yeah.
I'm not mad about them cheating. You know, um, what's the difference between them cheating and all the other big time programs such as the Yankees having all these guys win the World Series with all of them taking steroids? Is you know is that still cheating too? And I'm like, or the corked bats, you know, is that still cheating too? I think it is. And to put it to you know for them to be pissed off about the Astros but still be okay with them cheating to get those other World Series. I think it's hypocrisy in the making.
Well, yeah, I think people. I mean, I was definitely mad when I found out because I really pulled for them in 2017. But
Yeah, well, same, bro. I was
as
mad. Hey, I was mad too. Don't get it twisted,
oh
bro.
yeah,
I was pissed. I was like, come on, man. Like this is who we look up to. This is who we love, and you're just gonna do this? I mean, come on.
but I do think that people, the group think, especially with social media, people have such knee jerk reactions.
Yeah,
And they're like, why didn't the players get punished? What? I'm like, okay, but how logically do you actually punish the players? Who are you
exactly.
going to punish?
Yeah,
How can you prove that this person was involved, this person wasn't? Are you going to literally penalize, suspend every single person that came up on the roster that year, even the rookie guy who only took 4 at bats?
yeah.
Which guys can you punish? I think you have to punish the coaches, which they did a good job of. But I think that's
Hey,
where it's like,
AJ Hinch got hired though
yeah,
again.
and I'm happy for him. I'm
Me
like,
too.
he doesn't need a lifetime ban for baseball.
Yeah.
I believe in second chances, and I actually probably out of all of them, I liked him and Carlos Beltran. I think had the most sincere apologies. So that's for what it's worth.
I appreciate that. We'll see how this year goes, man. I'm excited. I'm ready for baseball. I hope.
Oh, same.
I think they're going to open up some stadiums this year, so I'm definitely excited to go back to some games because I do miss going to games, bro. Oh, man, the
Chase
atmosphere just
Field's
being out
gonna be
there.
open.
Is it? Well,
Yeah, here
I
in
have two
Phoenix.
different ones to choose from: the Giants or the Athletics.
It's true.
Uh, so I used to go to the Giants games because they were super cheap because they were terrible. So you pay like $6. Of course, you get nosebleed, but
Really
I had some friends that would hook me up.
beautiful stadium.
I have yeah, such a beautiful stadium. I have friends that work for, or I have a friend that works for like Bud Light. So they're always there. They're always the ones that sponsor all of these stadiums, so they get like really good seats sometimes.
That's
So it's really
awesome.
cool to get some of those seats. But
Yeah,
yeah, we're going to the World Series this year, bro. Let's go, baby.
could, it could happen. Could happen.
We got a good pitching staff, bro. I think we got a
Oh,
good
you do.
pitching. We got a good pitching,
Can't
and
argue with that.
then we did lose a big one,
George Springer.
Springer, but I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be
Yeah,
okay.
I think it'll be. I mean, Verlander's out for a bit more though, isn't
Yeah,
he? With Tommy John, that's too bad. But
I know
I mean, you got depth for sure. I mean, the Astros are they're a force to be reckoned with. I think the A's will be good. The
they
Angels, you
will.
never know. The Angels, man, it must be frustrating to be an Angels fan because they spend all this money. They have Mike Trout, Albert Pujols,
I know
obviously not good anymore, but I still root for him to get the milestones. But
the
they
Mets.
got Anthony Rendon now. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, bro. Let's hear one of my favorite things that I always ask you to play whenever we did play. Make sure to change your mic or whatever before you switch up.
Oh yeah, is it what I think it is?
Yes, it is. What do you think it is? This is one of I would always every time me and Wes would play on platform in Australia, I always tell him to play this for a sound check, and I love it to this day. If you know what it is, well, you know what it is. I'll tell you what it is afterwards.
All right, I'm not gonna be able to play the whole. Let me
You have to play the whole thing.
get
You can
some
just play the beginning part. Everybody will know what it is. Well, if they've seen the movie, they'll know what it is.
It's
That's
been
it.
a while.
That's all good, bro. Yeah. So that's what chord is that? What chord is that?
This
What's that?
D major seven.
I love that.
This is the thing I messed up on was it's the C sharp major.
That one right there.
Yeah,
That one that.
it slides down to an A augmented. It's all in the augmented, the chromatic movement.
I love that, bro. Cool.
Anyway, it's been a while.
Let's hear an original that you have. Is it long?
Well, you want me to do an original or just compose on the spot?
What would you rather do?
I'd rather just play for you, compose on the
Okay,
spot. I think
compose
that'll be.
something that's let me think of a way. So let's say that I'm outside on a summer's day, right by the lake, and we're having a few drinks, enjoying the day, but I'm ready to meet. I'm with my girl, my future girl as well, my wife. So it's very romantic, but very springish coming towards. So kind of play that for me.
All right. something like that. I don't know.
I love that, bro. Bro, I speak for
Just kind of
everybody.
went.
Let's do one more. Let's do
Okay.
one more
I was
thought.
just getting warmed up.
Let's do one where it's a dark, cloudy night, very cold and rainy, and it's it's like it's in the holidays, so it's like we're looking forward to Christmas, but you're in your room looking out the window and it's cold. You're about to turn on a movie and watch a really good movie with some pizza.
Something like that.
That's great, bro. Thanks for that.
Sorry, the lighting's not great, but you did say it was dark, so
No, it's good, bro. I you can change your mic back if you need to. Um, I'll speak for all of us and say you should definitely record an album of you just playing, bro. And I would pay for that 100%. I think you got a really great gift of that, and it sounded amazing. I can listen to you all day. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can listen to you all day. Who was the person you told me? Because I asked you the other day of who you thought was really good, and who did you tell me to listen to?
Rachmaninoff, Sergei Rachmaninoff, in my opinion,
And
best pianist of all time.
and you said that one specific composition. What was it?
Piano Concerto Number 2, and the
I've heard
specific
that before.
three movements, but the second one. So Concerto Number 2, second movement. So he's got three concertos. So the very middle,
Right.
Concerto Number 2, second movement. That just his combination of understanding of melody, and just his way to his melodies just get straight to the soul, straight to
For
the heart,
sure.
and but his virtuoso abilities.
I actually listened to it the other day, and I feel like I've heard it before. Has it been played in other places? Like, has it been played a lot?
I'm sure it has. It's pretty famous.
Okay, yeah, because I listened to it, I'm like, man, I know this. I knew the melody line and everything. It I loved it. It was so good. Like I love piano. I just never knew who to actually look for because I've never been in that kind of sphere of like what to listen to. I love a lot of soundtracks and all that. I remember I showed you one. You said you liked it, but I probably forgot about it. But it was Marcelo Zarvis or something like
The
that.
the train is that one?
Yeah, that from that
Yeah,
movie. That's such a
yeah.
good one. I love it. It's like pretty much piano the whole soundtrack or the whole score of it. And I remember watching that movie. I'm like, bro, this score is really good. I loved it.
I love
Um,
good movie scores. Sorry for botching the La La Land. All your millions of viewers are going to be very disappointed by that.
the millions won't care so much. It'll probably be just the 1% that would really care. But
I'm
no, I
sorry, dude.
appreciate it. It sounded great. Like I said, I love. You definitely should do something soon with that and record something, a few tracks, and just put
I'll
it in there somewhere, bro. Might as well start doing it.
I'll see what I can do. I mean, I would love to. I mean,
What's his
I
name?
just
What's that guy David from Australia that plays piano?
David Andrew. Yeah,
He, he, he
he's
came out, he came
incredible.
out with something with a bunch of hymns, and it was just all hymns that he played, and it sounded really amazing. I listen to it every now and then, as well, because I like it.
Mm.
So why not do something like that? You know?
I do have some stuff on SoundCloud, but if you search
Oh,
West German on SoundCloud, it's not the really complex stuff. It's more like I do. I like the Pixar type stuff as
yeah,
well.
that's fine.
And I actually one of them is called Lullaby for Caroline. She's my niece. She's almost 18 months,
Oh wow.
and I love her.
What
And
what what's your name on SoundCloud? Just West German.
yeah, West German.
Okay,
So yeah, it's that one I like. It's just kind of a melody that came to mind. I'm like, this would be a good lullaby. So she's heard it, and I think she likes it.
I love it.
So
I want to ask you another question. We get a few more minutes if you don't mind.
oh cool. Yeah, go
Um,
for it.
I saw today on Facebook someone said that this generation is soft. And I commented on it. I was like, freaking Facebook. I need to get off of Facebook because it just bothers me every time. But I commented, I was like, how so? And he's like, how not? I'm like,
It's
that kind of
one
question. I'm like,
response.
come on, man. And my question to you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but do you feel like this next generation is soft?
I feel like anytime people make sweeping claims about generations or statements about people, large people groups in general, it's is very rarely helpful. In fact, it's interesting because Pastor Brian was recently talking about that, how like we need to stop saying this is how millennials are, uh,
Gen
this is
Z.
how these people are. But yeah, I think though we do have an issue. I
I'll tell
would
you my
not say
opinion
oh this
after this
generation
too.
is
I'll tell you what I think
yeah
about it.
yeah. I think there's a lot of back and forth right now. Like the it's funny, a lot of people say millennials where they don't even understand who like we're millennials,
We're
and even
millennials,
people
yeah.
up to like age 39 or 40 are millennials. And most of the people that people are talking about, millennials, are like Gen Z or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that we're sometimes in this generational war where we say like, "Oh, you guys did this wrong. That's why we're in the situation that we're in." But it's rarely helpful. But
Right.
I do think going back to what I said earlier, we have an identity crisis in
Yeah.
terms of we a lot of things we just automatically make identity, and with social media, kids getting on social media earlier and earlier, and their identities not being fully developed. There's a lot of identity crises, and so when we talk about being soft, um, I think just the way we I think we have a much better understanding of empathy and mental health as those things are becoming more and more talked about. But I also think that because identity is so elevated, um, you know, that sometimes we can take things on as identity that would have previously been understood as just functionality or like a criticism, for example. You're not doing well at your job. Well, your job used to be more just something that you do, and now it's like everything is who I am.
Who you are,
And
yeah.
so it's hard to criticize someone without feeling like you're criticizing their identity. So I think there's two sides to it because there's good ways and bad ways to critique people and to really challenge people. But I don't think it's this idea of our generation soft. I don't
Well,
think
yeah,
it's
I wasn't even saying our generation. He said this generation, which I guess he assumed. I guess
yeah
he was
this
talking about Gen
generation.
Z. My thought is this: I don't think they're soft. I think they're getting tired of. Well, let me say it this way: our generation, we would say bad things to people or towards people or about people, and instead of them saying anything back, they would go and deal with it by themselves on their own in their room, either getting depressed, not ever talking about it, or doing all these things on their own. Now I
Hmm.
feel like what's changed is that when somebody says something bad about someone, to someone or whatever, they're not taking it to them, keeping it to themselves and going to the rooms about it. They're actually stepping up and stepping out. And I
Yeah,
think, and there are some better ways to go about it. I would say for sure, but I think it's good. I think it's good that people are
yeah,
finally saying, "Hey, you know what? You actually can't be saying that." Even though people used to say that on the past, it actually really hurt a lot of people. They just never say anything about it because they were afraid to. And now
yeah,
we're stepping up, stepping down, and saying, "Hey, you can't say that." And it's not so much that things
yeah,
have changed; it's just so much of they're fed up with having to deal with this stuff on their own by themselves in their room with no one else helping them. And I think it's good, man. Like, although we
yeah,
can't joke around the way we used to, I think it's good because those jokes probably hurt people really bad sometimes and ended up causing a lot more damage than what we ever knew or ever thought. And they might be stepping up for the future generations to no longer have to go through so much depression that we're having to go through right now because no one ever stood up and actually fought for themselves or fought for others. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
they're not so much
I
soft. They're so much more just
More
tired,
aware.
more aware, and just tired of people saying stuff to them and never actually getting anything back in return.
Yeah,
That's my opinion. That's my thought.
I think that's a great outlook. I do going back to the mental health thing because I think so much of this comes to that.
Yeah,
I think there's contributing factors that negatively affect mental health, like the amount of social media intake and all those things. But
100%.
there's also way more awareness, and I think that's a really important thing to be aware of. I also think that there is, sometimes we can I don't want to talk about victim mentality, like, oh, people are victims. I don't want to go there, but sometimes we forget. I saw a post about this recently, just how like there's actually things we can take responsibility for in terms of our mental health.
Yeah,
Um, and that's just a good thing to remember. It's not being soft or not being soft, but it's just a matter of like, look, I'm actually going to I'm going to find my circle of friends. I'm
yeah,
going to find the right people who
yeah.
believe in me. I'm going to limit my intake on social media. I'm going to get a healthy amount of sleep. I'm going to do these things, and it's easier said than done for certain people in certain circumstances. I don't want to ever come across as judgmental or
Right.
non-empathetic, but that's the other side of it. And I guess and without going into too much detail, and my role, which has very much a pastoral side to it. um, with people, like, some people come from really tough situations, some people are
Yeah.
going through really tough situations. At the end of the day, I can help them to this extent, and I'm going to listen to them, but there are going to be measures that they're going to have to put in place, and that's kind of what it comes down to. So obviously personal responsibility never goes away, but I don't think being more empathetic and being more outspoken is ever a sign of softness. I think it's actually a sign of, I want to actually deal with crap instead of burying it, because burying things is not good. I mean,
We've
I
done it
just
too.
think
We've done it
about,
too long in our generation. Too long.
and I just think about, like, go back a few generations to like World War II and the things that people saw, who I can't imagine, like people who fought in D-Day and all that stuff, and it's the trauma, the PTSD, and the awareness we have of that now. Some of the measures we could take, instead there are a lot of people of a generation of men who had to almost, who went there one way and came back a different way because their
Yeah.
hearts became calloused because they saw things that we weren't created to see. And obviously this is a stereotype, but there's a lot of people who they were just very different, very almost calloused, because they actually had serious trauma, because we were not created to see those things.
I
We're
agree.
not created to, and they didn't know how to process it, and they weren't taught how to They didn't probably have support groups and all that stuff. And I don't know all the details, but I think about stuff like that. I'm like, if there was a better forum, and I'm not saying social media, just blasting your thoughts, because
Yeah.
that's another thing where it's like, okay, is this actually you wanting healing, or do you just want to be heard? Which is a
Right.
step in healing, but sometimes the other side of it is, once again, the identity is, if you fix something to your identity, if your trauma, if your hurt becomes your identity, then you don't want to let go of it, because no one wants to let go of anything that's attached to their identity, because we fear like not knowing who we are.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part, where like sometimes people have tough things go on. I never want to lack empathy, but it becomes such a part of their identity that I almost want to ask them, what would it be like for you to actually be whole and be beyond this? And maybe it's something that they don't even conceive of, because sometimes we can get addicted to that pain, that Stockholm syndrome almost, where it just
Yeah.
becomes this prison that we've become comfortable living in. Disclaimer: I'm not a psychologist, so
Yes,
listeners, please
if
take
you
this
do
with.
need help, please, even hit me up, because I do know people who can get you the right
Yeah,
help if you need it. You know what I mean? I will find a way to get you the right help, to talk to a
yeah,
therapist, or whatever you need, because we're here for that, like legit.
yeah,
Anyways, one last question I want to ask you. It's kind of maybe a hot take question, but you don't have to answer if you don't want
yeah.
to. I saw there's this guy that keeps posting on my Facebook again. I need to get rid of Facebook, bro. There's just too much drama. But he keeps posting and saying that he said basically his big thing is like self-help is against what God wants. And he says do you believe that God can heal him, can heal mental illness? He posted one and said self-help is not the gospel. And I commented on it and I said, hey, look, I hear what you're saying, but I believe it's both that we need. You know what I mean? We definitely have the Holy Spirit, definitely have God, and He's going to help us every step of the way. But we have to take care of ourselves. And I use the analogy of faith for my personal life. So for me, every time people ask me about faith, or I talk about faith, I talk about me needing a job. If I need a job, I believe that God can provide a job for me, but it's my responsibility to make a resume, to go out and apply, to go out and do the tough work, everything I can do in order for me to get that job, even though I still believe that God's going to provide it for me. Same thing with mental health. I believe God can heal mental health and God can help that. But I think self help, such as taking care of yourself, like we said before, going to see a therapist, going to do all these things is super helpful and great. And with both together, you can see a miracle. You can see that. Yes, there are times that God can just definitely, like at a snap, heal that for sure and help with that. But most of the time, probably 95% of the time, it's going to be both, and we're going to need both. But at the end of the day, we know that God's going to provide for it any way He can, such as open the door for someone to give you the right word, or to connect you with somebody that is a therapist and all that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
If you want to, you don't
I,
have to. You don't
yeah,
have to.
I definitely, I've definitely seen thoughts like that circling around social media. I think there's a weird stigma when it comes to psychology and mental illness versus like physical illness, because that's the interesting thing. Like, if you have back problems, you're going to, yeah, you're going to pray to God and believe
Chiropractor.
for healing, but you're going to go to the chiropractor. You're going to take the smart, practical steps. You're
Right.
going to take the medicine that you need to take, or whatever it is. With mental stuff, I think, yeah, I get it. There could be definitely a spiritual component, but just, faith can partner with reason. Faith
Yeah.
and science work together, and I don't think it has faith and wisdom. And I don't think it has to be one versus the other. Just like
Yeah.
money, it's like we don't. You have faith for God to provide, but you also have to balance your budget, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Pray, pray it if pray as if it depends on God, work as if it depends on you, right? And
I love
I
that.
think some of the stigma can be around because of the fact that psychology, in its modern psychology and its roots, has maybe come from a more worldly or atheistic perspective. And so people look at it as ultimately, oh, we don't want a part of that. But that's
Yeah.
all the more reason that Christians need to engage with it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to engage with it with the tools we have and learning the science. So I don't think you engage with things and forget about the other stuff. But I think in terms of self-help, like, do I think there are Christians who make too much of an idol of self-care? Absolutely,
Yeah,
because Jesus says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me."
or herself,
And
not herself too.
or
Like,
yeah, deny
yeah,
her.
come on,
Absolutely.
bro. We gotta
Uh,
make sure everybody is in it, bro.
it's deny him or
Deny
herself,
themselves.
deny
Deny
them.
them. Deny themselves.
uh, absolutely. But I think that you know, I think absolutely you have to take care of yourself, as we were talking about earlier. I think maybe one of the where it becomes a point of conflict is who are we listening to more? Because
Yeah,
I think this can be a problem. I think self-care and all this stuff is so important, but when we're listening to the world's view on that more than we are the church, this is why the church needs to talk about it, because the world is going to tell you treat yourself, care for yourself, but it's not going to frame it in gospel terms. I also think I start to see a lot of I see people, who are Christians, when they come at it from a worldly perspective, it becomes very much like, this is how these people are treating me. This is how, I'm hurt and I'm this and that. And I think it's very important for that to be heard. But what can happen is that it becomes very self-centered, which this is such a tough thing to say, and I
yeah,
don't want people to take this the wrong way, but and I look at that with even like people bashing the church, which I understand if you're not part of the church. If you are part of the church and you're just bashing the church and all this stuff because you've been hurt, I'm like, I get that, but like, let's walk through this in a healthy way. And I
yeah,
think that can be a problematic thing where people just get very just feel very, I don't know, like they're just, it's almost becomes a self-centered misery. And I don't want to ever sound insensitive of victim mentality, anything like that, but I think that we need to walk this out in community. You
yeah,
have to realize, like you said, I'm blessed to be a blessing. I'm helping myself so that I can help others.
yeah,
And um and ultimately, like, I'm going to see the best in others. I'm going to believe that God is good. I'm going to believe, like, because if we get in this mindset of like, just so like, I don't know, like negative, and it's hard to explain, but
no, you're good.
I don't know how to fully answer this.
I think I would say this, bro. I think Jesus believed in self care, but let me explain this. That's why he said this. He created the Sabbath. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
with the Sabbath, but remember what he says whenever, the the who were the ones that Jesus always argued with all the time
Pharisees.
the Pharisees when they got mad at him for doing works during the Sabbath. Remember what he said? He was like, the Sabbath was not made. What is it that he says? Do you remember? Like, it was. It's
Like the Sabbath was made, like, it was made for us, basically. Like, it was made for man. We weren't
Yes,
like,
but we weren't made for it, and so
yeah,
I
it
think
was
that,
made
that
to help us.
I think that puts in a perfect view. Like, Jesus understands we need Sabbath was pretty much self care. He's like, hey, rest up, take care of yourself,
Yeah. Amen.
whatever. But remember, this was not made. It was made or yeah. Anyways, yes,
I know, like you said, like, wouldn't you pull your donkey out of the pit on the Sabbath if he falls in?
yes.
Like,
Wouldn't you help
we get so
somebody? Yeah.
legalistic.
But we
Yeah,
get so legalistic to the fact that you can't do anything on the Sabbath, when it's
yeah,
like, no, actually the Sabbath was there to help you and help others. And so if it's helping you,
yeah,
you're gonna be able to help others. So make sure and take care of yourself. Bam.
yeah,
Anyways, Wes,
yeah.
thanks for being on
Uh,
here, bro. There's so much more we can talk about. We can keep going for more time, but you know what? It's about that time, and I'll get you on again sometime soon, and we'll talk more about
I'd love to.
other stuff, and here's some more hot takes. Cool.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. You're a good man. I hope I didn't say anything too out there or
You didn't,
offensive.
bro.
I
You
love
didn't. There's been worse. There's been
to
worse. Not even on
everyone to
here.
everyone on here. I love you, and I'm just a guy trying to figure it out. But I love God and I love people. So anyway, and I
You're a
love
good
Jill
man,
because she's
Wes.
great.
Thanks, bro. Talk to you soon.
You're awesome.
Uh-huh.